I declare the meeting open at 7 p.m. and welcome everyone to this evening's meeting of Ku-ring-gai Council. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that to respect any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here this evening. As councillors, we are entrusted with the responsibility of representing the diverse interests of our residents. Let us work together in a collaborative spirit, respect diverse opinions and seek common ground for the good of Ku-ring-gai. Before we begin, I would like to outline a few procedures in relation to this evening's meeting of Council. This meeting is being recorded and webcast live on Council's website. Only councillors and Council staff will be shown on camera. Council meetings are open to the public as observers only. In line with the Code of Meeting Practice, members of the public can address Council via the monthly public forum. Council may close part of the meeting to deal with certain confidential matters in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act. These discussions will not be open to the public and will not be webcast. I want to remind everyone that this is a public meeting and we must all be respectful of each other. I remind councillors of their oath on affirmation of office made under Section 233A of the Act and printed at the front of the business paper. All attendees must comply with the Code of Meeting Practice and other relevant council codes, policies and procedures. Attendees must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, public alleging breaches of the council's code of conduct or making other potentially defamatory statements. Councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during the meeting. Councillors and council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest that they have in relation to any item of business that is on the agenda this evening. Are there any apologies for councillors? Okay, no apologies from councillors. Are there any apologies for staff?
Madam Mayor, there is. I have an apology from the Director of Community, Janice Bevan, and Virginia Leaf, the Manager of Corporate Communications, is acting Director this evening.
Thank you, General Manager. Are there any conflicts of interest of declarations for councillors? Now, just before I go to each individual councillor, if you could clarify whether it's a pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and significant or not significant, and what the nature of the conflict is. We'll start with Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. GB3, it's non-pecuniary, insignificant. I sit on the board, on the committee of chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. You're staying in the chambers?
Yes,
thank you, Councillor. Councillor Taylor. Oh, sorry, Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in item GB3. I'm on the Management Committee of East Linfield Community Preschool, for which council staff have recommended a small equipment grant to fund the installation of an automatic defibrillator for the local preschool, public school and church. I will manage this conflict by not participating in the vote for small equipment grants.
Thank you, Councillor Nye. Councillor Taylor.
I have a significant interest in GB3 Community Grants Program. My running mate in the recent election is a volunteer and employee of Linfield Football Club. The interest is significant and I will leave the room for the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Devlin.
I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in GB3. I was a volunteer at St Edmund's School in Ku-ring-gai over a decade ago. I will be staying in the room.
Thank you. And Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to GB3, I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in this, as I am the patron of the North Shore District Softball Association. I have no involvement with the management of this particular organisation, and therefore will be remaining in the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Pettit. I also will declare a conflict of interest for GB15, which is the post-exhibition reclassification of 1192 Pacific Highway, Pymble, as a non-pecuniary, non-significant. I live in the area, but not so close that I would have a significant or pecuniary interest. Are there any conflict of interest declarations for staff?
Madam Mayor, there are no declarations for staff.
Thank you. Are there any documents circulating the councillors' papers to be dealt with at the appropriate time during the meeting?
Madam Mayor, there is one document, which is a mayoral minute, acknowledgement of outgoing councillors and welcome to new councillors.
Thank you. Are there any reports to be considered in a closed meeting and not released to the press and public?
Madam Mayor, yes, there are two attachments. The first relates to GB15, post-exhibition reclassification of 1192 Pacific Highway, Pymble. Attachment 9, confidential legal advice, public hearing chair. The other document relates to GB17, Marion Street Theatre project update. And the document is attachment 1, Marion Street Theatre cost plan number 6.
Okay, can I seek a motion for these reports and attachments to remain in confidential? Moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, the mayoral minute. I have one mayoral minute, which is MN1. I will read that mayoral minute. As Mayor, my first priority is to acknowledge and thank the former council, which was elected in 2021. The term of the previous council was marked by achievements and challenges. The achievements include the opening of a new community space and underground car park in the heart of Linfield called the Village Green. We also built a regional playground at St Ives Showground, which attracted families from across Sydney, a recreation precinct in St Ives Village Green, and hosted new community events such as the Ku-ring-gai Heritage Festival and the Eco Festival. Other achievements include improvements to our waste services with a focus on recycling, added protection for Ku-ring-gai's tree canopy, and more grants for community-based organisations providing valuable service to our residents. I thank outgoing Mayor Councillor Sam Nye for his dedication as Mayor for the last 12 months, and I also acknowledge the contribution made by former councillors Greg Taylor and Simon Lennon. On behalf of the council and our community, I thank Simon and Greg for their service to our community. A warm welcome to the incoming council elected on the 14th of September, particularly the new councillors Indu Balachandran and Matthew Devlin, and my colleague Councillor Kim Wheatley, who will serve as Deputy Mayor until September 2025. As Mayor for the next 2 years until September 2026, my main priority is to work closely with my councillor colleagues to address the housing issue. This is likely to involve extensive community consultation to access what our residents want to see delivered in terms of new housing. Both the federal and state government housing targets mean the council must revisit our current plans for new dwellings in cooperation with our community. Another priority for me as Mayor is seeking initiatives to protect Ku-ring-gai's environment put in place. I look forward to talking more about these priorities in coming months and work closely with my colleagues to progress them. The recommendation that I'd like to move is that the council write to outgoing councillors Greg Taylor and Simon Lennon, thanking them for their service. Would any other councillors like to speak to my mayoral minute number 1? Okay, if that's the case, Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, I won't miss this opportunity. I think it is very important and appreciate that you've brought this forward, acknowledging the 2 councillors that were here on the previous term. I think both of them did very well and contributed to a lot to where we've got to on this particular matters in Ku-ring-gai. I think we'll miss them, that they've gone, but in saying that, we know that they're there. I'd also like to welcome the new councillors on board here this evening. I think it's important that they feel welcomed and that we kick this council term off in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a point of clarification. So is this recommendation that the council, as in the 10 of us, write to councillors Greg Taylor and Simon Lennon, or are you writing on our behalf? I'm happy either way.
I will write on our behalf if that's okay.
Okay, well,
Unless you prefer, I'm happy either way.
I'm happy either way. It's just
Okay.
that the current wording says that the council. So if you want to change it to that the mayor right to, but
Yeah, we can.
Whatever's
we
fine.
can change that. Thank you, Councillor Nye. Okay, so I will put that to the vote. All those in favour of the mayoral minute? That is unanimous. Petitions. Have any petitions been received by councillors or staff?
Staff haven't received any, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. General business. I'd like to invite councillors to nominate any items on the agenda that they wish to have a site inspection for. Okay. No site inspections. Can I please ask councillor now to nominate any items on the agenda that they wish to adopt as per the officer's recommendation, allowing for minor changes without debate? Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to nominate the following items for voting on without debate, starting with GB1 and then GB2. I would like to withdraw GB3 so I can leave the room. GB4. I would like to withdraw GB5. GB6. GB7. GB8, GB9, GB10, GB11, GB12, GB13, GB14. Would you like to withdraw
Yep.
that motion?
GB14.
We will. Okay, no, we're withdrawing that one.
Might as well withdraw them all.
And GB15. We will withdraw GB15 as well. GB16, which is the planning
You
proposal for the
withdrawing
golf
or
club.
you block?
We're withdrawing for 15, but we're not withdrawing for 16. GB17. Would anyone like to withdraw GB17?
GB17, yes, Marion Street.
Withdrawn, okay.
Yes.
And yes, Councillor Balachandran would like to withdraw. And GB18.
Sorry, GB18 you're withdrawing or?
No.
No, okay.
Let's recap. So I believe that withdrawn were GB3, GB5, GB14, GB15, and GB17.
So 3, 5,
Yep.
15, 14, 15, 3, 5, 14, 15, and 17.
Yep.
Withdrawn, okay. So can you, when you move it, confirm the ones that you are moving as a block? Councillor Taylor.
That means that I'll be moving 1, 2, 4, 6 through 13, 16 and 18 as a block.
Okay, thank you. All right, are you moving? You're moving. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pettit. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, so we'll just do it in a sequence order. GB3 is the next item. Ku-ring-gai Community Council Grants Program. So those councillors that have declared a conflict and want to leave the room, if you could do so now. Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move GB3 as the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder? Councillor Spencer. Okay, any speakers? No? Let's just move. Okay, all those in favour? That is unanimous. We'll just wait for the other councillors to come back into the room. Okay, so GB5, which is the Hanukkah menorah display. Do I have a mover for that?
I would like to move a motion, Madam Mayor, which I believe the staff have on file.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Balachandran, a seconder. Would you like to speak on?
I actually was wondering if I should read it out for
Yes,
the public.
please.
Yeah. Okay, so Part A has only a minor change, and that's that the council support the proposal from Chivard North Shore to install and display a menorah outside the council chambers, 818 Pacific Highway, Gordon, targeting the period from the 23rd of December 2024 to the 3rd of January 2025. And then a new Part B, that faith-based and cultural groups within the community are encouraged to submit similar proposals that promote inclusivity, celebrate Ku-ring-gai's rich cultural and religious diversity, and reflect our community's multi-faith and multicultural composition.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. So the minor change to Part A of this motion is really just to shorten the time period in line with what we did last year, and also to align it with the Hanukkah Festival. The expanded motion aligns with Council's commitment to inclusivity, respect and equality, empowering local organisations to shape our community's cultural landscape. The goal here is to encourage community groups to submit proposals for symbols, activities, events or celebrations, and by inviting the groups to participate, we actively ensure that all voices and perspectives are represented, fostering a sense of belonging for everyone. I believe that lending our space to Chivard North Shore for a few days is a little bit like a donation, and we could use a similar criteria for supporting requests to the principles outlined in the giving policy in GB4 in this meeting agenda. And I also think that we should rely on council staff in the future to make sensible decisions like this as part of that policy.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Balachandran is a seconder. Would you like to speak?
Thank you. I'd just like to support Councillor Taylor's reasons and to reiterate that our council is and must be a place for all communities to belong, be seen and be heard, and to reiterate the additional invitation to all communities of different faiths and cultures to approach us with ideas and suggestions so that we are genuinely a place and a home for diverse peoples and communities. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, I would actually like to move an amendment. The staff officer's recommendation for me.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Wheatley. Go ahead, Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, I'm a little bit shocked here this evening that we've got Councillor Taylor, with everything that's currently going on at the moment, wants to shorten the period that the Jewish community has put forward, that the officers have recommended, which funny enough is something that he said that the council staff should be able to manage. They did manage it, and we were looking at giving them a further extended period than what's been put forward. So I find that quite disappointing here this evening that we're going to shorten that period, especially in the time and crisis that we've got now. I believe also that this council has always been quite open to, at a point in time before even flying another nation's flag, we've opened the chambers up, and I'm very open to that. I don't think that we need to be doing this type of signalling, especially in this time of environment when the Jewish are being targeted in the way that they are at the moment. So for those reasons, I hope that we can get this evening here the staff's recommendation forward. It was put forward. It's something that we've done this for a number of years now. It's been a positive thing for the community, and I look forward to any other community group that have a request to put through to the council officers. I don't think this council has ever shown a position that we're not open to that. So for those reasons, I think the staff recommendation is adequate. I think the time period that the Jewish community has put forward is reasonable. I don't think there is any reason at all, unless we're sending a signal that we want to shorten that period. So for those reasons, I hope I can get the support this evening. Thank you.
Do I have any other speakers on this amendment? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I would just like to say that I won't be voting for this amendment, and I am not at all fussed about having a longer period of time. I certainly don't want to send a negative signal to Jabad North Shore, and in fact I see this as quite a positive thing. So I think this whole motion is about inclusivity and broadening it out for the entire community. So in the event that this amendment loses, I would be very open to changing the dates in the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the Ku-ring-gai Council is very inclusive. We have got a multicultural committee, which I happen to chair with my co-chair, Indu, Councillor Valentin. I think you know what we have got here as a staff recommendation is a good one. I think if we want to do more, it can come through the multicultural committee. There is a committee of different people that serves on this committee, and they can bring those ideas and we can bring that to the council. But can I say once again that this council is a very open council. It is a diverse council. It respects and acknowledges all nationalities and does all of the right things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question to the mover and seconder. I was wondering whether you might wish to put the dates back to what was originally done as a compromise between the two.
Thank you, Councillor Pettit. As I mentioned in my initial speech, I'm very comfortable with changing the dates. I just felt like it was what we did last year, and what they asked for last year, and I was aligning it with the festival, but absolutely I would. Although I believe that at the moment we're debating the amendment. So we're not changing the original motion at this point, we're debating the amendment. So in the event that the amendment loses, absolutely I would change the underlying motion.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer.
Slow down. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to say to Councillor-elect Taylor and Indu Balachandran is that you can adopt the changes into your original motion, and then there is no need for the amendment. You do not have to wait for your motion to be defeated or anything. You can just just adopt it into your motion. Thanks. Sorry, should I just clarify?
I'm just clarifying with the General Manager. Unfortunately, because the amendment doesn't include Part B, you can't do that. Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, look, I'm happy to incorporate Part B in my amendment.
Okay. Are you, as the seconder, Councillor Wheatley, are you happy to do that?
Agree.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith?
Madam Mayor, I think we seem to have a smiling council here this evening, so I think I don't need to speak to this any further. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further speakers, I'll put the amendment. So all those in favour? That's unanimous. Now I will put forward that the amendment becomes the motion. So those in favour? That is unanimous. Now we're voting on it as the motion. All those in favour? That is unanimous and carried. Thank you. The next item is GB 14. Do I have a mover for post-exhibition reclassification of 261 Mona Vale Road, St Ives? Is there any mover for the motion? Councillor Pettit. And a seconder?
I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Spencer. Are there any speakers on GB14? All right, we will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Pettit, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Ward, Councillor Ballatandran, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Nye, Councillor Wheatley and Councillor Smith. Those against, Councillor Kay. Next is GB15. Post-exhibition reclassification of 1192 Pacific Highway Pymble, and I have an alternative motion that can be put up on the screen. I can read that if you like. Council resolves not to reclassify the land at 1192 Pacific Highway Pymble from community land to operational land. B, that in accordance with clause 3.354 of the Environment Planning and Assessment Act 1979, Council requests the Minister to determine that planning proposal not proceed. C, Council note the interests of local community in collaborating with Ku-ring-gai Council's bush care team to develop a program aimed at improving the health and quality of the bushland within 1192 Pacific Highway Pymble. I will move that motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Taylor, are you seconding the motion? Thank you. I will speak to this motion. I wanted to highlight the importance of preserving our precious green space, specifically Secret Park in Pymble. This park is not just a plot of land, it's remnant of the blue gum high forest, a critical habitat for our wildlife. I've personally experienced the magic of this space, hearing the calls of powerful owls, black cockatoos, lorikeets, whitbirds and kookaburras. The Secret Park is more than a haven for wildlife. It is a vital part of our community wellbeing. With increased urban development, preserving this green space is essential for maintaining our physical and mental health. Pocket parks like this one are not only to protect the environment, but also enhance our quality of living. They provide accessible green spaces where residents can connect with nature, unwind, and experience a healthier lifestyle amidst growing urban density. It's encouraging to see the local community, as well as respected environmental groups like Step and Folk, actively engaging in this cause. These groups have made detailed submissions and have been strong advocates for the protection of our local environment. Their expertise and commitment, along with collaboration with Ku-ring-gai Council's bush care team, will help create a program aimed at improving the health and quality of the bushland. The recommendation from the independent chair to withdraw the planning proposal to reclassify the land from community to operational. This land should remain available to the entire community. With its outlook and habitat preserved, reclassification could jeopardise both accessibility and the delicate wildlife it supports. We must ensure that community land remains just that, community land. By preserving Secret Park, we not only protect the natural beauty, but also a sanctuary for wildlife and a space for families to connect with nature. Pocket parks like this enhance our quality of life. I urge you to join me, along with groups like Step and Folk, in supporting the recommendation to withdraw the reclassification proposal and in working to keep Secret Park a legacy for future generations. A reminder that our environment is worth fighting for. Once it's gone, it's gone. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council is the trusted custodian of $3 billion worth of assets across Ku-ring-gai. Most of those assets are roads and footpaths and drains, but a big chunk is also property. And some of that property is open or green space. From the recreational needs study last term, we know that we are underserved for parks in Ku-ring-gai, and that is only going to get worse with the housing crisis and the coming development. We have a responsibility to maintain and renew the asset portfolio, and sometimes Sometimes it's appropriate to sell one asset to fund the purchase or creation of another asset, like we did when we sold the old depot site in Gordon to fund the new depot in Pymble. However, I believe we need a compelling rationale to sell any assets, particularly this green space on the highway in Pymble, a park in a housing crisis, and unfortunately the case to sell 1192 Pacific Highway is not strong. Yes, it's not in a perfect location, but a lot of our parks are not, and if we sold them all, they'd all be gone. Parks are already rare. It's becoming infeasible to purchase open space in ideal locations. And by the way, I commend council staff for the work they've done in acquiring land over the last few years. Well done to Director Watson and all of those people involved. They have done a great job. But with the TOD, low and mid-rise housing SEPs, the days of council buying well-located land are over. Yes, the site is small, but we need to make the most of all of our assets, not just the green space, and particularly our parks. We're creating pocket parks and tiny forests and continually looking for places to plant trees. This could be one of them. Yes, access is not great. Poor access is not a good reason to sell an asset. We should improve the access. We should install a ramp. Where is the specific and compelling purpose for selling this community-owned green space? The specific and compelling purpose. The small amount of funds that would be realised from the sale of this site can't be used to fund Marion Street Theatre, can't be used to fund St Ives basketball courts or indoor courts, I beg your pardon, Linfield Village Hub, any of those projects. We also haven't sufficiently explored other options to partner with a developer to dedicate the land back to council after adjacent property development. The case to reclassify and sell this community-owned land is not good enough. There is insufficient return to the community for the cost of losing a rare piece of open space within walking distance of a station, immediately before a wave of housing development. The case to reclassify and sell this community-owned land is not good enough. I will be voting in favour of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Alec Taylor. Councillor Sam Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got an alternate motion, which I believe the staff have
An amendment?
available. An amendment, yes, to put on the screen. And I will read out the changes that exist. It is basically the officer's recommendation, but with points A, E, and F different. So I'll read out point A, that council adopts the planning proposal to reclassify 1192 Pacific Highway Pymble from community to operational land, noting that, as reported by council officers, some of the feedback provided by the state agencies is not based on correct assumptions, that there has been interest from community submissions in retaining public access to the land for open space and the preservation of habitat. 3, that the current configuration of 1192 makes inclusivity, public access and safety difficult. 4, that there is a willingness from council to explore sale of 1192 to an adjacent property owner if it can be linked to a voluntary planning agreement that rededicates a material portion of the existing 1192 back to the public, improves accessibility of this portion to the public, and provides additional development rights elsewhere on the consolidated site. And 5, council may subsequently decide to reclassify the land to community land within the next 4 years if a VPA is not achieved. I'll read out point E as well. Point E is that council may consider, not approve, but may consider the divestment of 1192 Pacific Highway Pymble in accordance with council's acquisition and divestment of land policy once the land is formally reclassified as operational land under the KOEP 2015, with final approval subject to the parameters of the VPA. And point F says that council authorises the general manager and or his delegate to commence negotiations to divest the land based on market valuation advice and in accordance with council's acquisition and divestment of land policy. So I seek a seconder, and that's all.
Councillor Alec Taylor, would you like to second? No. Okay. Councillor Kim Wheatley. I second it. Councillor Nye.
Sure, I'll speak to this. So look, I used to live on the Pacific Highway when I first got married, and when we had our first child, particularly, we valued open space. And fortunately for us as Kilara residents at the time, we had an open space across the road at Regimental Park, within 200 metres. It was a fantastic place. It kept us sane, especially towards the start of the pandemic and times like that. Now, so when I look at this 1192, I am very keen to preserve it for use by the public. I know that there's a park, future park, 500 metres away, but 500 metres, that's about 6 minutes walk, especially with terrain. So it's not ideal. I'd like to keep 1192. But the thing is, we tend to simplify the situation. We tend to look at it at two extremes. I need to see the timer. I can't see the timer anymore. But there are two extremes. One extreme is council claims to be selling this land to grubby developers so that there can be more homes and loss of wildlife. On the other extreme, it is we will not do anything at all. We will keep the land as it is. It remains unsafe. It remains difficult to access. It remains the kind of place where I will not comfortably send my wife or my children to on a day-to-day basis without me being there. So look, there is an in-between option, which is what we present here. Basically what would happen, and there is precedent for this. I'll give two examples. In Roseville, at the Roseville RSL Club site, council sold a little bit of operational land to the developer there. The floor space was used to support more units within that development site, but the public access to the land remained. So it was a win-win situation. The developers won and the public won, and we will have better public domain access in the future. Another similar example is with Balfour Lane at Linfield Coal site. We sold Balfour Lane to the developer, the Coles development, and they agreed to relocate the road to another part. So council won because we had some money to fund other things happening in Linfield, but the community also won because they retained lane access. And this is a similar situation here. We've got 4 years as a council to act on this. We've got 4 years to potentially, if we make it operational land now, negotiate a VPA with an interested buyer. And the thing is, if we can't secure a VPA in the next 4 years, we can, towards the end of the next 4 years, reclassify it back as community land. No problems at all. We've done that before. But the thing is, if we don't explore this option now, then we end up with it's not a win-win situation. The site as it is remains safe, unsafe, inaccessible, difficult to access for, I would not feel comfortable sending anyone there. But if we go down this third option, we have the possibility of retaining the site for public use, or the vast majority of the site for public use. We have the possibility of funding safe entry and access and cameras or whatever it is that we need to make the site safe. We also have the possibility of retaining the trees. We have the possibility of supporting the wildlife there. So it is a win-win situation for everyone, I believe. Why do we have to act now? Because we cannot discuss a VPA unless it is operational land. And as far as I understand, if we were to say, look, we leave it as community land now, we will never have that conversation. We will never get to explore whether a few $1 million of public benefit can be preserved or generated for the interests of future Ku-ring-gai residents. So I would encourage everyone to consider this option. Yes, it does involve reclassification, which we can easily, as this council, reverse within 4 years, but it does open up the option of a win-win situation for all members of the public. Thank you.
Councillor Wheatley is seconder. Would you like to speak to the amendment?
No, just
Thank you.
reiterating that.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just first, I'd like to clarify through the General Manager to Director Watson. Can we have a preliminary conversation with a potential acquirer about dedicating the land back and a VPA without the land being classified for operations? Can we talk to them at all?
Through you, Madam Mayor. It's my understanding that it's not lawful to
seek to have dealings in property while it's community classified. So as a matter of custom and practice, this council has never done that.
Thank you. Now I'd like to speak to this amendment. I'm a fan of the underlying idea in this amendment. It's great. With the VPA, Ku-ring-gai would end up with a park within walking distance of Pymble Station on the northern side. What I'm not a fan of is the sequencing. I don't think we should classify the land first, then investigate the VPA for dedication back to council. And there is a precedent here. Many years ago, Ku-ring-gai classified a large piece of land with the intent of only making part of it operational and reclassifying the remainder back to community. The remainder was never reclassified back. 2 council terms later, it came back to council to be sold. The original intent of that classification was never followed through on. I'm not in favour of reclassifying this land to operational tonight. But I also don't think we should break the law. So what I'm interested in is council staff exploring this option. I would like to know more about it. I'm interested in it. I think it has real merit. I'm not ready personally to reclassify this land. I think that's a big step, and it's something that could, in a few years' time, come back to bite us. So I will be voting against this amendment tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Martin Smith.
Madam Mayor, if I may ask a question through you to Director Watson. Director Watson, just to further explore what Councillor Nye has put forward here this evening, can you just sort of explain what that may look like, or how you think it would work? Are there any mechanisms in there that we should be concerned with, or do you feel that it's actually a very workable situation with what we're trying to achieve?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it sets out a pathway for a report to come back to council about what is and isn't possible. At least that pathway is open. At the moment it's not.
Thank you. So for those reasons, I will be speaking in support of Councillor Nye's motion. I believe that I think this does give us an opportunity as a win-win to look at it. I think it's something that's got to be investigated. I think that there has been some concern from some of the community members that if this is sold, that we're going to lose the blue gum trees and so forth. I've done a lot of investigation with that and found that that's not necessarily the case, because the fact of the matter is the blue gum needs to stay up, and the biggest issue that we've actually got is there's an easement through there, and Sydney Water's got access to it, and if they wanted to remove the blue gum, they can do it any time without even going through council. So for those reasons, I think what Councillor Nye has put forward here this evening is perfectly reasonable, and would basically, let's say, make comfortable some of the residents that have made some raised concerns, at the same time allowing council to make some decisions that we need to do as a council to actually generate money. It's been one of the problems we've had for many councils before, taking the step in the initiative to be able to recycle assets, and it's something that councils have to be brave enough to do. So for that reason, I'll be in support. Thank you.
Councillor Nye, do you have some questions?
Oh yes, through you or the General Manager to Director of Strategy and Environment. First question is, if this land were not to become operational right now, and we wanted to subsequently investigate a VPA and have it as operational land in the future, how long would that take? How long would it take to redo the whole reclassification process?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to get to this point, a bit unusual timeline because there's been an election sitting in the middle of it, but it's been more than 2 years to get to this point. You would expect somewhere between 12 and 18 months, and a developer won't wait that long. They would be looking to prepare a DA and lodge a DA, and they won't wait for 12 months to go through a reclassification process.
Sure. And then the second question is, if anyone within this group of 10 councillors wanted, if it was operational land, and if anyone here wanted it to be community land, and they put in a motion, how long would that process take from it if it worked on this council term?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to go from operational land to community land is a relatively significantly quicker process. It's got to go on exhibition for 28 days, so there'd be a council notice of motion or wherever it came to the floor, 28 days of notification, and then it comes back to council for a decision. So to go one way is a full planning proposal process, and to go back is 28 days with 2 council decisions.
Okay, and then final question, like, as you know, there's a lot going on at the moment. If we were to postpone this decision of community land, operational land, whatever, would you have any appetite in revisiting this decision personally or as a team in the future, or do you think other things take priority?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my job is to implement the lawful decisions of the council of the day. So if the council asked me to revisit it, I would revisit it.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Matt Devlin.
Madam Mayor, through you and the General Manager, I'd like to ask the Director of Strategy and Environment a couple of questions. Director Watson, in the interest of just trying to get a bit more information for the benefit of everyone here in the room, my council colleagues and the public gallery included, I'd just like to revisit a few points that I've come across through my looking into the history of this. And I'm sure, like many other councillors who, like myself, have received a number of emails, many of which have been carbon copies from residents and other interest groups around the park or parcel of land affectionately known as the Secret Park at 1192 Pacific Highway. On that note, can you please confirm, contrary to other remarks this evening, that the site has never been formally gazetted as a park, noting that the site was acquired from the Water Board in 1979, with council abandoning the idea of establishing and maintaining the area as a park as a result of its unsuitability the very same year that they acquired it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. The site's never been declared as a park, it's never been zoned as a park, and never been used as a park. Council did originally look at installing tennis courts and abandoned that idea almost immediately.
Thank you, Director Watson. It is my understanding that throughout the past 45 years of Council's ownership that this parcel of land and every attempt to convert this site for public recreation has failed. So unsuitable is the site to the conversion to recreational space. In fact, Director Watson, can you imagine if the Council had sold this land between 1980 and 1983 as a result to do so on numerous occasions? It probably would have spared us all the humiliation of the example of Council in action. I'd just like to confirm, though, that since 1983 the site has remained vacant, and I quote now from the business paper before the Council, that the site has remained as it is, with minimal maintenance given that the park is not park and not for public use. Can you please outline the annual cost of maintenance on the site, outlining the methodology of access, and how, if the neighbouring site is developed, what impact this would have on access and maintenance costs?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can have a go at that. We did cover some of these issues in our reclassification report. General costs, Councillor Devlin, are in the order of $1,600 a year. Anyone who's been to the site would have noticed that some of the large trees at the front side have been lopped. Heavy equipment and parts of those trees where they had to be taken out were taken out through the back car park, through the vacant property next door, into the rear of the presbytery. In the event that the adjoining property is developed, that option wouldn't be available. The old concrete driveway at the front of the site, the raised concrete pad, is not considered to be sufficiently good condition for council vehicles to park on it. So at the moment, it's my understanding that the operations team will park down in the town hall car park and generally walk up and walk back. So carrying equipment, carrying things that would remove. So it's a little bit of a hike up and down the hill carrying equipment for that. Because of the nature of the site, a lot of the work is done by hand. So you don't go and use heavy machinery, you don't spray for weeds, which is a bit of a sensitive site.
Thank you, Director Watson. Would you also dispel for me a concern that's been raised about the site being the only green space west along the Pacific Highway north of Mona Vale Road? Given 1192 is vacant and not established for recreational space, and the site's about 928 square metres, would you include that in the example of another 8,000 to 9,000 square metres of heavily wooded green space that's made up as far south as Creswell, O'Reilly Lookout, all the way through to Warrawee?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think the first thing I would draw attention to is the new properties the council has recently acquired, as recently as a couple of months ago in Livington Parade in Pymble. So that was our intention for a brand new park on the western side of Pymble. But there are a number of other parks, as alluded to by Councillor Devon, Creswell, and they're all outlined. I think it's attachment 8 of the officer's report. Creswell, O'Reilly, Tarma Community Garden, Kirtwich Park, as well as Sheldon Forest itself, are all on the western side of the highway. Quite a few existing spaces there, Councillor.
Director Watson. Another question, if I may. I'd like to ensure, and this is more along the lines, and I commend Councillor Nye for his amendment to the motion this evening. In line with, I know a lot of the ecological concerns that may assist some decision making around the table this evening, but also put at rest the minds of the community behind us and at home. I'd like to ensure that this council is seen as one of action and having strong environmental pedigree, protecting our vibrant biodiversity. So can you please outline what steps can be undertaken to address concerns on the matter of the preservation of the ecological sensitivity of the site, its ecosystems, and the Blue Gum High Forest should the site be reclassified?
Through you, Madam Mayor, as councillors will be aware from the officer's report, the site's mapped in Council's LEP for biodiversity purposes. It's mapped in the LEP. It's covered by state and federal legislation. So what all those things do together collectively is put together a whole lot of considerations that would be taken into account in the event there's a development application on site. Now those considerations and triggers exist irrespective of whether the land is retained in public land ownership or private ownership. So from council's perspective, there is really no difference. The same sorts of considerations have to be put, depending, notwithstanding who the owner is.
Thank you, Director. Just to highlight the very last point there, that it's almost irrelevant as to whether it's operational or community land, the same protections are in place and we have the same potential risk, be it to Councillor Smith's example earlier, with Sydney Water were to open up one of the easements for critical work. Once again, thank you, Director Watson, and Madam Mayor, my final question, if I may. I'd like again to quote from the business paper when I say that the site is bounded by is burdened by Sydney water easements, affecting approximately half of the site. These drainage easements will not be discharged as they serve an important purpose. In addition, the site contains large trees from the Blue Gum High Forest community. These easements and the tree root zones restrict earthworks and ramps that would be required to convert the area into an accessible space and properly link the space to the highway. End quote. Given the majority of this site would appear to preclude any opportunity for council to construct and provide safe and feasible access to a utopian green oasis that would eventually be surrounded on three sides by private high-density towers overlooking the railway line, whilst enjoying the tranquility of extreme traffic on one of the country's busiest highways with a parking platform come outdoor undercover injection room. My question is in several parts, Director. What is the likelihood that the site will ever provide meaningful recreational benefit to the community? B, what will be in the interest if we were to divest the site in order to support the council's open space acquisition strategy? My third part of the question is it your understanding and recommendation to council to reclassify the site with an intent to divest to a free market, of which I know there is some concerns, but in all reality there is really only the potential for one interested party unless the neighbouring block and Five-Star Place choose to open up their strata's sinking fund and purchase it themselves. My fourth point, given the easements and the remnant Blue Gum High Forest community, what is the likelihood that either council or any other landholder would be able to meaningfully develop the site into open recreational space, or to clear the site and convert it into an apartment block? And finally, as there are two easements impacting the site, as I quoted earlier at the start of this question, and the concerns around the loss of Blue Gum High Forest, should Sydney Water need access to the easements tomorrow to undertake critical infrastructure works, would any protections in place right now prevent Sydney Water from starting the chainsaws at 7 o'clock?
Madam Mayor. I'm sure I'll be picked up if I miss any parts of that question. I think all I can do is look at the last 40 years, which says there has not been wide public interest in using or wanting to use the site. The site has, as far as we're aware, no practical use. It's a site for disposal of rubbish, disposal of tree limbs. It's not an inviting place. The only access is down the stairs from the old garage, concrete slab, and that's not something that you would define as accessible. In terms of getting accessible access to the site, it's a site that sits several metres below the Pacific Highway, and you would have to ramp at whatever the grade is, 1 in 72 I think it is, but that'll give you an idea of how shallow the ramp would be. There would be an awful lot of ramp to get pedestrian access on a site that is sitting below the road and then slopes further away from the road. So that in itself would be a fairly significant piece of engineering work. Council's open space acquisition strategy looks for a number of things, but the key ones would be a site of about 3,000 square metres, multiple street frontages, and a site that you can build safety through environmental design into the park. Now this particular site doesn't have any of those opportunities, and because it's such a small site, it's only mid 900 square metres, it'd be very difficult to provide any meaningful recreation use and preserve the environmental benefits of the site. It was never Council's intention to dispose of the land as a standalone site, and because of the location of the easements almost virtually east to west through the middle of the site, it'd be impossible. Council's acquisition or disposal and acquisition policy would require us to offer it to all adjoining neighbours, of which there are two. You've highlighted who they are. And in all likelihood, there's probably only one, and that's the developer of the abandoned houses next door. Because the property was originally acquired with effectively trust funds, it was pre-Section 94, those funds would have to go back into an open space reserve, so they would be recycled. I think was a word we've used a couple of times tonight, back into other projects. And the most obvious project is the 3 houses we just bought down the road, 500 metres away. So there is a live project where funds could be put to. Sydney Water still has to go through its own approvals to remove trees. That doesn't necessarily require council consent or concurrence. I imagine they would work with us. It's not that they've ever done that work in the past, and the assets in the ground are relatively new compared to other Sydney Water assets. So I don't think there's a danger that chainsaws will come in tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. But I have seen Transport for New South Wales staff trimming trees on the highway and throwing them off the concrete pad into the circular garden. I think I've covered all your points there.
You have. I was keeping track as you went through there. Thank you very much, Director Watson. I take from that the site cannot be developed on in any real essence, that the Blue Gum High Forest and its ecosystems will not in any likelihood be compromised, and the funds, if there were to be a sale subject to the clauses set out in Councillor Nye's amendment, would provide Council with the capacity to appropriately divest into the critically required community green space acquisition. you very much, Director. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Devlin. Councillor Indu Balachandra.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak in support of Councillor Nye's motion, and I thank my fellow councillors for their extensive questions, which have been very helpful. One of the biggest issues with council's recreational spaces is that many of them are not fit for purpose. Our council is under pressure to deliver more multi-purpose public and community facilities. Without funds, this is not possible. This land is unsuitable for wide public recreation due to access and location. Divestment of less suitable spaces to enable more suitable ones is a reasonable approach, and I acknowledge a difficult decision. To those concerned that this is the only green space in the vicinity, I note Council has acquired properties on Livingston Avenue for a future park, which was not highlighted at the public hearing. I also acknowledge the inherent value of the property in relation to ecology and biodiversity, and Council can work to preserve this through the VPA and development process, if and when it comes to that. I have discussed preservation of ecology on similar sites, precedents and risks with Council staff, and I thank you for walking me through that. For reasons of pursuing widest community benefit in relation to green spaces and balancing economic, social and environmental benefits, I support Councillor Nye's motion as it stands. Thank you.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, if I may ask a question of, I think, Director Operations. Would you be able to tell me how often do you do maintenance on that property?
Through you, Madam Mayor, once a quarter.
Thank you. And can I also ask a question to Director Watson, please? Secret Garden has been mentioned a few times of that property. I've not been able to find anywhere that that property is named Secret Garden. Can you enlighten me, where did that come from, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, you are quite correct. It has never been named the Secret Park or the Secret Garden. It's 1192 Pacific Highway, Pymble. It's not uncommon for community groups to put pen names or nicknames to spaces. We saw that previously with some land that council disposed of down in Roosevelt Chase. These days, anybody can make amendments to Google Maps and things like that. So, but certainly, it's never appeared in council's mapping system. No.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Okay, we will put the amendment, Councillor Nye's amendment, to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Ward, Councillor Balachandran, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Nye, Councillor Wheatley, Councillor Smith. All those against? Councillor Pettit, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Kay. The amendment has been carried. Thank you. GB 17.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, sorry, that's right. We'll vote for the amendment becoming the motion. All those in favour of the amendment becoming the motion? That is unanimous, and we will vote on the motion. All those in favour of the motion is Councillor Ward, Councillor Balachandran, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Nye, Councillor Wheatley, Councillor Smith. Those against, Councillor Pettit, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Kay. The motion is carried. GB 17. Marion Street Theatre project update. I have an alternative motion. If you could put that up on the screen. I can read that motion if you like. that Council receive and note the update report on the likely costs and timetable to redevelop the Marion Street Theatre in accordance with Development Application DA 0144/20 and the actions required to be taken to achieve substantial commencement. B, that staff brief Council on the likely costs of implementing works required to preserve Development Application DA 0144/20 in order to achieve substantial commencement. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Spencer, a seconder? I reserve my right. Councillor Spencer, would you like to speak? You'd like to reserve your right? Thank you. Councillor Balachandran.
I'd like to move a motion for an amendment. I think the staff have it.
Okay.
So my alternate motion is A and B remains the same. And I'll just read out Part C, which is to approve a budget of up to $300,000 in the FY 25-26 budget to facilitate the construction of the most cost-effective limited works to preserve the DA, development consent, into which significant time, community consultation and financial cost has been invested. These limited works could either involve the external driveway or internal demolition works, and that staff are authorised to identify the most cost-effective, contained and complementary element within the broader program of works. It is noted that a funding plan for the full cost of the project and requisite approval will be required to progress further construction.
Thank you, Councillor Balachandran. Do we have a seconder for this amendment? I will. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Balachandran, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Cultural infrastructure is critical to healthy, socially connected communities, and we know Ku-ring-gai is adapting to younger users, changing demographics and a growing population. Community connectedness remains a critical issue for us. Let's start with need and evidence. I've read every facility and cultural infrastructure paper and plan. 2018 CSP, our Community Strategic Plan, identified that many of Ku-ring-gai's current facilities are not designed for the diverse needs of contemporary performance arts and cultural interests. We committed in 2018 to undertake community consultation, concept plan development and DA documentation for the renewal of Marion Street Theatre. And, congratulations, we delivered this in 2021. It is the only investment we have planned for cultural infrastructure. In the 2022 to 2026 Community Strategic Plan, we committed that the renewal of Marion Street Theatre would be substantially completed by 2026. It is currently the only deliverable that has a red traffic light. 2024, this year, our Arts and Culture Committee has identified that the single most important need for this council and our community is venues. Our last cultural facility options paper identifies the renewal of Marion Street Theatre as a critical pillar for our cultural infrastructure, with deliverables that are, let me reiterate this, deliverables that are unable to be satisfied by any other spaces. Our community and young people have hardly any avenues for arts and cultural development, and we know 4 in 5 residents of Ku-ring-gai attend cultural events, and we know that our creative industries are diminishing while councils around us, Willoughby and Ryde, are increasing their capacity to engage in this growth sector. This site has been closed coming up to 11 years as an unused community asset. We do not need any more points of evidence or consultant reports to be convinced that we are doing our community a disservice and costing ourselves more economically and socially by kicking this much-needed infrastructure down the road. Now, to funds, and yes, I do know about money. We have spent a great deal of money, time, community consultation getting to this design and DA. We have to secure the work we've done to date by preserving this DA. I understand that we have the capital cost of $30 million to raise. Our staff have recently applied for a matched grant of $15 million to the federal government. Let me say, to secure funds from external stakeholders, we have to be clear about our intent to actually make progress. and perhaps I can borrow from Councillor Devlin's words, to stop inaction. This small outlay to commence works in a contained fashion and preserve the DA clearly signals our commitment and will make it easier for us to attract co-investment. The amendment here acts as a backstop for the work we've already done, as well as a key to unlock other funding by signalling our intent. We can and we will find the money if we commit to start with. Remember, the first community hall on this site was built by public subscription in 1906, and the community theatre transformation in the 60s was a fundraising effort. Our community wants to be part of the next investment and wants the opportunity to raise funds. Between federal, state, council and community funding, we can do this, but we need to be able to stop worrying about the DA expiring. I commend the councillors who have led the projects that our constituents need and are excited about when they are finished. The Linfield Village Green, the St. Ives basketball court, the library upgrade, the park on Bruce Avenue. We need to progress more initiatives that create villages that bring people of all ages together. Our young people are feeling especially invisible, and we have the obligation to create spaces for people of all ages, or we will not be a sustainable community. This beautiful art space has been designed for us, by us, and will do this. Public life matters. Councillors, I've nearly finished, thank you. Let's put Marion Street back on the cultural map of Ku-ring-gai. We have the opportunity to demonstrate that we are a mature and action-oriented council that can deliver outcomes. And we do not want to be remembered for fatiguing our community's spirit through inaction. We have not been elected so we can make easy decisions, and I urge my fellow councillors to commit the small amount of funding to unlock the investment we need from other stakeholders to get this cultural hub built. Thank you.
Councillor Alec Taylor is the seconder. Would you like to? Okay, thank you. Councillor Cedric Spencer.
Thank you. I would like to park a foreshadow motion, please. Which is the, yeah, that's it.
Which is what, sorry?
I just
You
said
don't?
foreshadow.
Okay.
No, I do know.
Oh, if it fails, okay, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Smith.
Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor, what's the current motion up at the moment?
So this is the amendment.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I would like to foreshadow the amendment with another amendment.
Second foreshadow. We have to do one at a time.
Yep. Okay. I'll park it for the moment.
Councillor Sam Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak briefly in support of this amendment. I am okay with what is on the screen. I know there are some councillors who are have questions about the 300,000 in FY 25-26 budget. I do note that that budget doesn't come into play for at least another 8 and a bit months, so we still have time to change things as we go. I do commend the initiative for getting things started. However, I also note that 2 councillors have have foreshadowed this amendment with their own amendments, and I also look forward to seeing what those amendments are, because there is a possibility that those amendments are even more constructive or more attractive than what is on offer here at the moment. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. So that was 4.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin Smith.
Madam Mayor, in relation to this amendment that's been put forward, may I ask, the $300,000, that's obviously to get commencement on the site. A question through you to Director Watson, where would that $300,000 be spent? Obviously to get commencement. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as the amendment's drafted, it effectively leaves that discretion with staff. The report explores the construction of the suspended road through Selkirk Park. But likewise, there is a paragraph in there that talks about an internal demolition works package. Both approaches have their pros and cons. You would not build a road through Selkirk Park, for example, unless you were absolutely committed to doing the theatre renovation. But by the same token, by starting to do demolition works in the theatre, you would cut off options for the option that the last council considered, which was a tidy up, coat of paint, fix a rewiring, open the door. As soon as you start demolishing works inside, you would rule that out. So it's not as if either approach is risk-free. And in terms of cost, the cost, there's a couple of lines in the latest cost plan that deal with the road. The only thing I'd say there is that they deal with the package of works as a complete package. So as soon as you pull out one piece of work, you would pay a premium to get a builder to do that. And the other unknown at this point in time is we need to, as again discussed in the report, lodge a modification to the approved DA to get stage 1 works identified. Now there are at the moment 20 odd conditions that have to be satisfied before demolition work can occur, and some of those include significant, for example, bonds. So until we work out exactly what conditions we're able to move around so they don't apply to stage 1 works, whatever those are, it's a bit hard to specify exactly what's made up of that 300,000.
Councillor Martin-Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Director Watson. So it could be seen a little bit at the moment putting the cart in front of the horse if we were to go down this avenue. So at the moment, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Barbara Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I ask a question, please? Through you, Madam Mayor, if I could ask Director Watson, it's been mentioned here tonight that if we go ahead with this, we're giving an opportunity for the community to start to raise funds. Has there been any funds raised through the community previously, and is that an opportunity if we approve this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll take that in the absence of the ordinary Director of Community. It's not my understanding that there has been any great success in raising any funds from the community. There has been a number of philanthropists allegedly wanting to put some money towards the project. There was a fundraising plan put together a number of years ago, which the council of the day decided not to fund, but I think it is well accepted by a lot of people close to this project that you've got to put some skin in the game to attract other people to the game. So I understand that's the basis for a number of amendments for the council tonight.
Are there any other speakers for the amendment? Okay, there's no other speakers. I'll put to the vote. Those all in favour of the amendment? Councillor Spencer, Councillor Balachandran, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Nye and Councillor Kay. Those against? Councillor Pettit, Councillor Ward, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Wheatley, Councillor Smith. The votes being equal, I exercise my casting vote in favour of the amendment. Now the amendment will become we're voting on the amendment becoming the motion. All those in favour? It's automatically the motion. My apologies. We are now, excuse me, councillors. We are now voting on the motion. All of those in favour of the motion?
Excuse, point of order.
Sorry.
I understand there's 2 foreshadowed amendments. So
yep. If people don't put their light on, it doesn't happen. Would you like to do a alternative, Councillor Nye?
I'll leave it up to councillors.
Councillor
I will
Smith?
move an alternate.
Okay, that's fine. We'll just do it as an amendment.
Yep, we'll do as an amendment. The staff have mine up there, which basically what it is, a staff recommendation and also just moving point C.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If we're going to look at foreshadow, then mine should be next in line. If we're looking at foreshadow, because his is after mine.
I believe it's not a foreshadow, it's an amendment, but if you wanted to do an amendment, Councillor
Yes, I would.
Spencer?
I'd like to
Okay.
move mine as an amendment.
Okay, that's fine, and then he was first in line, Councillor Smith, so we'll come back to you. Councillor Spencer, what is your amendment?
The amendment would be that council receive and note this report, which is the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Seeking,
Sorry? Well, no, it's here. Read that on the business paper. That council receive and note this report.
thank you, and Councillor Pettit seconding the amendment. Councillor Spencer, would you like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Pettit, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'll reserve my right.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, Councillor Smith.
Yes, I would like to move an amendment.
We can only deal with one amendment at
Shadow
a time.
amendment, sorry,
Okay.
or shadow amendment, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a point of clarification. I think this is quite an interesting motion because in the executive summary of the report, the recommendation is that council receive and note this report, and then under the recommendation it says, this is a question through you to the General Manager. Under the recommendation it says, refer to the full recommendation at the end of this report. So is it your understanding, General Manager, through the Mayor, that if we were to carry this amendment, that we would be carrying the full recommendation embedded in the report?
Through you, General Manager, are you answering this question?
Maybe I should clarify.
Just needs some time.
It is plain
Councillor Spencer.
as that. Council receive and note this report. That's it. There's no further interpretation required. Council, and of us, receive and note this report. That's
Okay.
it. Full stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. I have General Manager?
The purpose of the receive and note, the council is acknowledging the contents of the report and the actions. If there are things in the report that the officers say they're going to be doing, in the absence of council resolving in some other way, we will proceed on that path. So by you receiving and noting it, you've acknowledged that that's the path we're heading on.
Thank you, Councillor Martin Smith. Would you like to speak on this, Councillor Smith?
No, I'll be moving an amendment after this, thank you.
Okay. We're voting on the amendment.
I don't know if the
Yeah.
foreshadows are working, I don't know if the amendments are working.
No,
I'm happy to be told
I understand.
what it is you want me to do.
All right. Well, we're going to vote on the amendment.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Smith?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, if there's no more speakers on the amendment, so the amendment is council receive and note this report. All those in favour? Is Councillor Spencer? Oh, okay. Thank you. And that being all those against? Councillor Pettit, Councillor Ward, Councillor Balachandran, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Nye, Councillor Wheatley, Councillor Smith. The amendment is lost. Councillor Smith.
I would like to move my amendment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. What is your amendment?
Okay, the staff will, if I could ask them to bring it up. So it's literally, all I've done is I've changed point C. A and B are off the officer's staff recommendation. And I'll wait for that to come up so everybody can see it. Just jump. Just.
Okay, do we have a seconder for Councillor? Okay, Councillor Ward. Councillor Smith, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yes. So basically, I'm in support for something happening at Marion Street Theatre. I think it's important as a council we're not seen as just point scoring or kicking a can down the road to say, hey, we're spending $300,000 and we're going to activate that DA. I think this council, it's a new council, needs to look at what we've actually got in front of us. It will give us the opportunity in doing that. The risk, if we were to go forward with my fellow councillors' original motion, is that we would possibly end up with a road to nowhere in the middle of a park that's constructed on pylons, which I think would be an absolute terrible outcome for the community, whilst we've got tot zones being proposed, parks required to be used, and I think we've heard here this evening that we've got a lot of councillors that believe that it's very important for the community to be able to go to these places. So what I've put forward there, it's basically saying that we're looking at putting it operationally into our funding in 25-26. We can consider it and go through it. Hopefully by then we've actually got a council that's resolved on a position on what it is really prepared to do with this site. I think we've got to be very careful that we don't send out to the community that we're here just a point score, that whatever we're doing, we've made a considered decision and we've got the whole council on board. Otherwise, what we end up with is something half constructed, half stopped, a road in the middle of a park, and we are going to look absolutely ridiculous. There is no reason to jump on this now and commit the $300,000 currently as it stands. And I think we've got to do it we've got to show to the community we're doing it in a sensible way. We're looking at what our funds are, and it will allow this council that's just been formed to make an informed decision. So for those reasons, I actually would hope that I get all the councillors' support here this evening, because at the end of the day, it would be really nice to actually be able to build a theatre for Marion Street that's been waiting for a long time, but let's not put the cart before the horse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Barbara Ward, a seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I will. Madam Mayor, I support this because as second-term councillor, I have done everything I possibly could for Marion Street Theatre to be up and going. There are many obstacles. There are many things that we need to evaluate, to assess, but the most important thing here is that we want to give the community a theatre. I agree with my councillor friend here that that is not to be done in haste in the first term of this council. That there are new councillors here who need to be abreast and be fully appraised of what has happened so far. And I think just hearing about the road that is to go through and the consequences that it would have, I think it just makes common sense for us to wait. And I support this motion in relation to those items. So I ask my fellow councillors to please consider seriously what we are voting on and to support this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to speak actually very mildly against this amendment. I agree with Councillor Smith's intent here, and I actually think this is what would happen anyway. I think when we go through the budget process early next year, of course we would consider where those funds would come from, and I believe that we would have another opportunity to consider the decision that we would be making tonight. I'm not worried about building a road to nowhere. I trust staff to do the right thing and make sensible decisions with our money. I don't think we'll end up with any kind of white elephant out of this if we actually dedicated the money. What I do like about this motion, the original motion, in preference over this amendment, is that it gives a dedicated certainty to the project. It's a commitment. It's time for us to commit. It's time for us to get on with it. I don't want another process, another briefing, another review. I think we're ready to commit some money to this. This is not about point scoring, it's about a commitment tonight. So I'm mildly against the amendment, although I also would consider putting point C into the original amendment as well, because I think actually those two can actually live together as well. And I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor Matt Devlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a question to Councillor Smith, if I may. I'd just like to clarify the intent of the motion we've got here. Hopefully it might be able to allow my learned colleague with his own deliberations on this, insofar as I believe through at least my exposure to the community through the election campaign that there is a want and a need for the community to have a dedicated performance arts space. That has been something that Marion Street Theatre has provided for in the past. What has been alluded to through your own speaking to this amendment is that council needs to have time to take further deliberation. We haven't yet set the budget for 25-26, but we're already prepared to start carving it up. I suppose the clarity that I'm seeking here is that the intent that you have in moving this amendment is that you support a Marion Street Theatre, but do so with some fiscal sustainability in mind, so that, as Councillor Taylor has noted, it is likely that what you have scripted there as the amendment would likely happen anyway. If this is the case, can you confirm that we, by doing so, will have the option to go back and hear, ensure that those who have wanted to be heard on this front have their voices heard by way of being able to deal with this in the 12 months ago?
Councillor Smith.
You ask very long questions. Firstly, yes, I'm for an arts in theatre in Ku-ring-gai. Ku-ring-gai deserves it. Marion Street people have been waiting long enough for it. I think that we need to put some fiscal responsibility into this, and I think it is actually a very important, crucial thing that we do, and we demonstrate, this council demonstrates to the community that we're going to do it in the proper order that needs to be done. Councillor Alec Taylor mentioned there before that he trusts the staff to do the right thing with the bridge. I trust the staff to do the right thing with the bridge through the park. It's not the staff, it's the councillors. The councillors are the problem, because we get a change of heart, we get a change of position on Marion Street Theatre when this particular council really hasn't sat down there and looked at it and said, okay, we're looking at $30 million on this project. Given the opportunity, somebody's going to change their mind later. We need time to think. There's no reason to make this decision now. So for those reasons, I think that we need to be straight up with the people of Marion Street Theatre. We need to let them know where the position is. Don't lead them on, and let's be upfront and have honest conversations with them and bring them along the journey with us. And I think for those reasons, I think there will be a great outcome, and hopefully it's not going to be another $300,000 thrown to a project that goes nowhere, and then we're in the papers, Sydney Morning Herald probably, we've got a bridge in the middle of nowhere that we've been condemned for. So for those reasons, yeah, I hope to get the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cedric Spencer.
Thank you. So this is very interesting. I was of the view at first, look, I'm not speaking against this motion. amendment or whatever it is. That's right. It is an amendment now. It was a foreshadow. Because I was of the view that it already covered that in the earlier motion that I moved, the earlier amendment that I made, which says accept and receive, right? A note and receive and note. So I might have some questions that I need clarified. So this motion here, and perhaps Councillor Smith and staff could assist as well. So this motion here is rather specific, and it's very similar to what's on page 907, because it says the same thing there, where if we receive a note, staff will be doing that anyway.
Is that a question for Director?
Not yet. So, sorry, just bear with me. So it says, so maybe this question is perhaps to the mover of this motion first. So is that specific, and then all this will be disregarded?
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'm speaking to the motion, but my amendment. But just to make it clear, I believe that mine is more specific. Allocation of funding for works to preserve the development and consent for Marion Street Theatre during the budget deliberations for 25-26, and I believe that the staff may be able to support that. Is that what you're asking?
That's right. Maybe
mine
I can
is more
ask.
specific. I'm happy for the staff to answer that.
Director
Thank you.
Watts.
So what's the difference between what's on page 907 and that 3 points there?
General Manager, did you want to answer? Oh, sorry, Director Watson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, page 907 is a summary recommendation, and as a number of councillors have alluded to, it refers you back to the full recommendation at the end of the report. And both the recommendations in the report are effectively received in notes anyway. First detailed recommendation is receive and note the report on the likely costs and timetable, etc., etc., etc. And note that Ethos Urban have been commissioned to prepare that section 455 modification, preferably relating to the road. But as I spoke to earlier, the original motion left flexibility, as I think this does, for us to look at either the road or the internal route, or frankly, another set of appropriate and limited scope works to preserve the consent. I don't want to offend people or oversimplify things, but a lot of what we're talking about tonight is largely going to exactly the same place. Receive and note, and the issue seems to be at what point the money is committed. As far as I can tell, that's largely the difference in the amendments and the motions on the table.
So essentially, I noticed that it says there preferably in relating to the new access road, which is preferably as well. So it's not that it is a must; it's an option to look at. So I'm not against this motion because it's already in the officer's recommendation, and it was in the original one where I moved to receive a note because the staff was going to do that anyway. So I'm happy for either one to to go through, but I just need to clarify the intention, whether it's yours moving away from what staff wants to do.
Mine is very close to what the staff is going to do. The other part that I'm very aware of is that I want to give some flexibility to it because we're going to go to a council workshop. There's going to be a lot of discussions on these type of items. And this DA, like this is the top, sort of the best, like what we're looking at providing. It may change slightly. All I've tried to do is open it up and give as much flexibility to it as possible. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
All right, so just to further clarify this, you are not intending to disregard everything else?
Not at all. It's literally all I've done there is do point C.
Okay, so can we have a confirmation from the general manager that this is what is understood tonight here? Because they are very similar, and yet one could be read as disregarding everything else, whereas the receive and note is receive everything that's here, whereas this one is more narrow. Receive and note is broader. But he has his points too. So I just need the general manager to clarify that we're not disregarding this entire report.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I read it as being the same recommendations as in the staff report, but it also gives an expression of commitment from the council when it's deliberating on the budget to consider allocating funds for this project.
All right. So nothing done here is wasted, right? Thank you.
Councillor Sam Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak in support of this amendment. Now, we were sworn into council 2 weeks ago, so it's still very early days. From what I understand, the staff will start to prepare the budget for 25-26 towards the start of next calendar year, so 2025, and council will be likely to approve the budget in April of next year. So we do have some time to set the budget. However, in the last 2 weeks that we've had so far, I don't believe, unless I've been left out of it, I don't believe we've had very extensive conversations so far about what are the key priorities that we believe are important for each individual councillor here. I know I've had conversations with Councillor Spencer about what's important to him, and he knows what's important to me, for example. And it would be nice if we had the time as a council to decide on what those priorities are before we then look at Marion Street and go, are we doing a full-size DA upgrade? Are we doing something smaller? Are we building more footpaths in, say, Killara and Auden, or are we putting them all into a theatre? How are we going to fund it? There are a lot of questions which I still don't know the answer to. I know we've only had 2 weeks so far, so what Councillor Smith proposes here gives us a little bit more time to have those conversations with each other, start to get a better idea of what's going on. We're not setting the budget necessarily till April next year. I'm not necessarily against Councillor Balchandran's what's now the original motion either, but there's also the opportunity to revisit that in the next few months. So I am speaking in support of Councillor Smith's amendment here. It just gives us more flexibility to explore options and know what's going on, and also understand how this interacts with what's happening with the Todd precinct scenarios. So speaking in support of this amendment, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nye. Councillor Indu Balachandran.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to speak against this, and I'll reiterate not too much what I spoke about. So I think that for those who are voting, let me clarify the difference. This motion is a form of uncertainty, and the previous motion is a form of certainty about committing a small amount. I think we cannot agree we need a new space and then find reasons to stall. I think fiscal responsibility is following through on the significant amount of money that has been spent, the design, which has had proper consultation and on our community planning processes. 8 of us are not new councillors, and we do not need to use conversations as a polite euphemism for delay. The previous motion was to actually continue the work that previous councillors have started. It doesn't have to be an external driveway. It can be less intrusive works. We have to signal our intent, and signalling our intent for action is not point scoring. This site has been generating enough options and enough delay that costs us enough. It's time to actually commit to our years of work. Everything that we possibly could, someone said that, we're doing everything we possibly can. I'm not sure we are doing that till we commit skin in the game so that other co-investment can actually flow. It is not $30 million. is $300,000 and it is action. The arts community does not need to be brought along with us. They were here years ago. I think we need us to bring ourselves along. All these motions, as a new councillor, seem to be kind of muddying the waters. The previous motion is clear. I think we need to lock in the DA. Thank you.
Councillor Jeff Pettit.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As being the last councillor standing back from when we closed this establishment back in 2013, so you can blame me, okay, fair enough, because I was one of those councillors. Anyhow, this project has morphed through various iterations. It was the bargain basement version, the middle of the road, and then the Rolls Royce. The costings for those have changed over time. The middle of the road was less than 10 million. It's morphed into 16. Previous iteration were at 21, 23 million. We're now at 30 million and counting. So, yes, this makes sense to me. We've got to make sure that we have our ducks in a row, not have the cart and the horse in the right sequence. We had a council previously who couldn't understand that concept. I think we know which one that was. Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Yes, he has no longer with us on council. But it is important when we're talking about a huge amount of money to make sure that we get it right. Remember on the Linfield Village Hub, we have spent in excess of 10 million and we are not there yet. So at this point in time with Marion Street, around $1 million, okay? 100,000 a year, approximately. I want to make sure that when we get this thing up and running, that we do it in the right sequence and that we can fund it, we know where the money is. We've heard these philanthropists, all these great donors, checkbook missing in action, never appeared in over 10 years. Skin in the game we're talking about. It's always council, community, zip, okay? People as simple as that. So if people want to put skin in the game, put skin in the game. You know, don't just keep talking about it. Last term we went through various options, didn't we? We had the approved DA. We had meetings with other interested parties who believed that 249 seats was not appropriate. They believed that 500 plus was more appropriate. Why? Because 4.5 kilometres down the road, you've got the Xena Theatre at the same size. So why would we want to duplicate? It's their argument. We're competing with exactly the same thing. It's like building 2 service stations next to each other, both selling petrol. Doesn't make sense, not good business sense. Then we went through an option where it was a large-scale redevelopment with a theatre within it. Then we went through the bargain basement one, which was brought by Councillor Lennon, and nobody wanted that. So we're at this particular point in time of 249 seats. Back in previous councils, back before probably the majority of you were here, we actually looked at relocating Marion Street, the theatre project, into the Gordon Hub. And that was going to be a large-scale theatre. Why did we end up with Marion Street? Because it's one of those things, it's always been there. It's very sentimental. So that's why the hub was not progressed, 500 seats approximately. So that's why with these particular projects, it does go through all these various iterations and design concepts. Even with the approved DA, people have wanted to rejig that because they don't like this particular one. Officers. We're almost at that point in time where it's the hit the go button. But to make sure that we've got the funding strategy, we've got it in the budget, we've got to know where the money's coming from. Wouldn't it be nice if we come up with a project, $40 million on footpaths across the LGA? It would benefit over 100,000 people. We would never have to do anything for the next 4 years because people would actually love us. Because that 40 million would benefit tens of thousands of people. Okay? So in this particular instance, it is the arts sector, which has not been well loved. So I'm quite happy to support Councillor Smith's amendment.
Okay, are there any other speakers for the amendment? There being no further speakers, I will put the amendment. Those for the amendment is Councillor Pettit, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Ward, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Nye, Councillor Wheatley, Councillor Smith and Councillor Kay. Those against, Councillor Balachandran and Councillor Taylor. I'll now vote for the amendment to be the... Oh, sorry, it's the motion. Yep. So the amendment will be the motion, so we will vote on that. All those in favour is Councillor Pettit, Councillor Spencer, Councillor... Oh, that is unanimous. Thank you. Carried. Okay, I'm up to business without notice. Is there any business without notice subject to clause 9.3 of the Code of Meeting Practice? No business. There being no further business, I would like to thank councillors and staff. I would also like to thank members of the public for their attendance. The webcast of this meeting will be available on the council website and minutes will be published within the next 2 working days. I declare the meeting closed at 8:51. Thank you.